gets to share with us this morning. She just got back from El Salvador. So Leah, if you want to come on up, then you can begin to send out the offering. Let's just pray, Lord. Lord, bless these tithes and offerings. Lord, thank you for the generosity that you give us. May you amplify it. In your name, amen. Amen. You just tell him when to play the video.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's good to see everybody. So, a little forewarning, I'm a little scatterbrained this morning. My phone decided to die this morning, like my SIM card, so I was late to church, and I literally jumped out of bed, got in my car, sped a little bit, we don't tell the cop in the room, and then got here. So I don't have my Bible or my notes or anything, so we're totally and completely winging this. So I just got back from a week-long missions trip to Santa Ana, El Salvador. So if you don't know where that is, El Salvador is in lower Central America, and it is part of what they call the Bermuda Triangle, which is Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. They're three very dangerous and very gang-infested countries. So a little story I want to tell you guys before I start is when we were there, we got the opportunity to go build a house for a woman that needed it, and I want to give you a little backstory on her. So you'll see her in the video. She has an 11-year-old son. His name is Luis. He is about the sweetest little boy you will ever meet, and he has got the biggest brown eyes. They just melt you. It's amazing. But her name is Marcy, and she is an ex-prostitute. So her father was murdered about 5 years prior by one of the gangs, and she was forced to flee her city with her son and go and start over. And she got this little piece of property from her aunt that she was able to take care of, and they gave it to her. But it was like a cattle pen almost. So it was these 4 brick walls, and there was a gate and some razor wire at the top, because the buildings in El Salvador, they all have razor wire to try to keep people out because it becomes very, very dangerous. There was no house. There was no safe structure to keep them out of the storms, to keep them out of cold nights, anything like that. This woman, providing for her family, used pieces of scrap tin that she could find and put them in a corner to try to make a little house. And honestly, if you were to draw a line down this stage right here, that was how big that their house was. And they had 2 beds right in the middle. Water was getting in all the time. They had her son's bed, it was just a small twin-size cot that had a very small mattress, and then her bed was also just a twin-size cot, but instead of a mattress, she had 2 pieces of cardboard, and that's what she slept on, you guys. She was working at a restaurant, and she would get $5 a day, 3 of which had to go for her bus fare to get to and from. And then 2 years prior to when we came, her son was hit by a car, by a person that was on their phone. He was 9 years old at the time. He broke a lot of his head and had to get his skull almost reconstructed. So he has scars down his face, and then his hips and legs were all messed up, so he doesn't walk very well. So now factor in, you're living on $5 a day, 3 of which goes to your bus fare. You have $2 left a day, and now you have to pay for medical bills. And now you have to get him to a hospital. And now you have to care for him and still find a way to put food on your table. Can you guys imagine? So I'm going to show you guys a little video, but before I do that, I want to tell you guys a verse that God spoke to me on one of the first days that we were down there, and it is James 2:14 through 17, and it says, "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but does not have works? Can such faith save him? If a father or sister is without clothes and lacks daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, stay warm, and be well fed,' but you don't give them what the body needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith, if it does not have works, is dead by itself." So you guys, going to a third world country, it breaks you. Spiritually, physically, emotionally, because you get to see how absolutely privileged we are and the amazing things that we have, but you also get to see how, in spite of these people having very little, they have so much spiritually, and I'll share a little bit more about that after the video. So this is a little slideshow I made. This is about 1/16 of the photos we took. And you'll see a lot of my best friend Ruben. He came with me. He'll be in a lot of those photos. So, all right, you gonna play the video? So that video is a little random, but let me give you some backstory. So we got these tacos, and Ruben was putting guacamole on them, and then we ran out of guacamole. Now there's this other green sauce on our table, and I'm like, oh wait, that's jalapenos, don't eat that. He's like, oh, it'll probably be fine. Puts 4 big scoops on his tiny little taco. So we were all laughing at him because then he was drinking a fruit drink, and if any of you know anything about spicy food, you don't drink fruit. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah. So I don't have any of my notes, but it's okay. So you might have seen that video when we were playing soccer. That was at the Living Free Gang Rehabilitation Center. So the missionary we went with, Kenton and Eunice Moody, they started a gang rehabilitation center, and it is the only gang rehabilitation center in all of El Salvador. That is the only chance they have. A lot of the men that were in that have face tattoos, and a couple years ago when the gang violence started getting really, really bad, the government did a roundup and arrested thousands and thousands of people, whether they were guilty or not, whether they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or if they were actually a part of the gang. So for some of them, if they had been heavily involved in the gang and they had gotten the face tattoos, that was enough to get them arrested. So if those guys leave and they're walking down the street, a cop can stop them and put them back in jail because of what's on their face. And people are like, well, why don't you just get a tattoo to cover it up? Because the police have a special light that they can see underneath them. And the laser removal is very, very hard to access. So those guys are pretty much stuck. They don't have a way out, so the gang rehabilitation center is their only way out. At the rehabilitation center, they are provided with meals. They get to learn a career. A lot of them learn how to make shoes, how to bake. We actually went there to lay block for their new bakery that they are making. So hopefully in a couple of years I can go back and we will have treats from their bakery. I was able to buy a pair of sandals. They are super cute. And yeah, so a lot of the guys are super, super nice. They also, when they're there, they receive Teen Challenge treatment, which we have here too, because a lot of them are getting over a drug addiction. And then they get to experience Jesus. So when we were there was 9 men in the rehabilitation center, 5 of which had already given their lives to Christ. It is a 2-year program. So after 2 years, they try to get them set up in a career and get them set up with housing, and then they're on their own and they're welcome back at their church, and they have a community, they have a brotherhood, they have a family, which is really the most important. A lot of the people in the gangs, they never had a father figure and they never had a family. So Kenton Moody is able to be that father figure, and they're able to have that family. So I won't talk too long, but I just have a couple more things that were really cool. A really big spiritual step for me is the first night we were there. We were doing worship, and there was this woman sitting in front of me, and she was just weeping, and the Spirit kind of just fell over the whole place. Like, these people, they know how to worship. It's awesome. And I got to speak in tongues for the first time, which was absolutely incredible. And then one more thing I'll talk about is we were able to go to a youth prison. It was kids as young as 11 years old. Can you imagine your 11-year-old being in a prison? The conditions were not good. They don't have clean water to drink. The country doesn't have any plumbing systems, so you can't flush toilet paper because their pipes aren't big enough because they can't afford it. There's garbage everywhere. You guys saw the very beautiful parts, but you didn't see the garbage that just coats the side of the streets. There's wild dogs everywhere that carry diseases. There's people that are digging through that garbage just to find something to eat that day. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And at this youth prison, we were only able to speak with some of the young men. A lot of them, we were not allowed to go in with them just because of the gang violence and because they hadn't been there long enough for it to be safe to do that. And they have to keep the gangs separated. And so we did a little service, and God kind of spoke to me and told me to share my testimony. So I did, and then he kept speaking these words through me, and he kept breaking me. And it was good because it was stretching those spiritual muscles that a lot of times we try not to do. We try to shy away from because it's the hard conversations, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, you could see the pain and the loneliness that was in these boys' eyes. I have an 11-year-old sister, and all I could think about the entire time is, what if that was my sister? And the pain and the loneliness that was in their eyes was just absolutely heartbreaking. And we got to share with them this, like, the story of Jesus and how they are loved and how they are cherished regardless of what they've gone through or what they've been in. And the gang does not define them. We did a salvation call at the end, and none of them raised their hand, but you have to understand, for a young man who is involved in a gang to raise their hand is social suicide and could get them killed. When you are in the gang, you worship the gang. That is it. We actually had one kid in the back that was praying to a saint, and one of my leaders went over and she's like, well, who are you praying to? He said, the gang. The gang is my God. And it broke all of our hearts. But you know what? There was this one boy sitting in the front row, and I kept looking at him because I just kind of just felt God say, that's the one. And he had tears running down his face, and he was praying, and he asked us to pray over him. He may not have outwardly accepted Christ, but you could see it in his eyes that he was so desperate for Jesus. And that was good enough in my book, as much as a hand raised. So you guys, if you ever get the chance to go on a mission trip, please do. It is absolutely amazing and life-changing, and we take so much for granted.
Let's give her, she is so eloquent up here. That is a reason why getting our young people, but even our older people on the missions field and out experiencing what God's doing all over this world. I'm actively working on a couple opportunities this summer for us, so stay tuned for some stuff about that.